Hello and welcome to Imperium Code channel. So first, let me start telling you a bit about ourselves, why we started Imperium Code, and the main purpose of this channel. So my name is George Rattle. My partner's name is Patrick On, and we're both programmers at heart. We actually both started programming at a very young age, less than 10 years old. So for us, programming is a passion. It's something that we really love doing. And for us, we don't like just to write code that works. We are mostly interested in writing efficient code that can actually scale, can be modularized, can be reused, etc. So back in 2018, we decided to really join forces and start Imperium Code, and for many reasons, one of which were the actual issues that are happening in the market. So, in the software development industry, to be more specific, so for example, freelancers were not being able to meet their deadlines. They were either under or overestimating a project's worth or timeline, so budget and timeline wise. And at the same time, the clients were not really being able to clarify what they need and to communicate their details um, clearly in order to build the software that the business actually needs. So a lot of assumptions end up happening between both parties, a lot of miscommunication, and which results eventually in a lot of damages. So we realized that the problem was not really with the developers or service providers themselves. It wasn't either with the actual clients or their knowledge about the business. So both were competent enough in their own industry and profession. However, the main problem was that there was no process. So, for example, if you work with the same exact developer over and over again, each time you will get different results depending on their own circumstances, how the project was handled, the budget of the project, what did they have other projects, if they had any other projects that are running in parallel. So, for example, were they actually working on other projects in parallel or not, etc. So, we decided to really approach the whole issues in the market, solve them, and take things a bit to the next step. And that's why we started Imperium Code. That was one of the main motivations behind Imperium Code. And just like we address software, we decided to address business the same way we address software development. So Imperium Code by itself, it's a machine, it's a process. We realized that in order to make it scale and to make it be, really efficient at scale, and to be able to really have consistent results, quality of service, etc., we really needed to define its identity, just like we define the software. And to give you more examples and to explain more about this, when you want to write a software, you need to define what does it do, what expected generated output should it give, and obviously what input does it actually accept. And this is the main trick. The more you leave your software exposed to a bigger margin of input, the harder it is to make your algorithm predict and handle all of the cases. And the more you limit this input, the easier it is to predict the cases and to handle them. And not only to handle them, but to also be able to realize the patterns and be able to optimize and make it even more and more efficient, to use less memory, less CPU, be smoother, faster, and provide even better and better and more consistent results at scale. And this is the trick. So for Imperium Code, we defined the whole process, and we also defined the our input. So that means that we had to create what we call a client selection policy. And it's not that there is a good or bad client. There is no good or bad client. It's just that there are clients that our business and mindset and policies align with, and others do not. And we chose to only work with those that we can 100% align with in order to do things right. Because we either do something right or we don't do it at all. This is our main, so this is one of the main pillars in our mindset. It's not about getting money, it's not about making more profit, it's not about doing more projects. It's about whenever we do a project, it needs to be done the right way, the safe way. If we saw that there's a risk by taking the project, we'd rather not take it because we do not want to eventually cause damages on clients just because we wanted to make some profits. Anyway, so we had to define our input, and defining the clients is one thing. We also had to defining like the client selection policy was one thing. We also had to define the resources selection policy, the qualification standards of the developers, contractors, in general. So whether they are developers or UX consultants, business analysts, project coordinators, project managers, QA, etc. So the main point is after we have made sure that everyone that is working, all of the stakeholders are qualified and aligned to our policies, then we can proceed to really understanding the business need, understanding the requirement, defining the requirement of the software. And this is the hardest part. Once that is done, programming is the easy part. It's no longer, it doesn't take a genius to write a program anymore. It takes a well-disciplined, organized team and clear requirement to really understand the pillars of the project, to be able to lay down the foundation really properly in order to build on top of this foundation. And the main issue is that most of the businesses, they rush into this and they end up writing software with no proper foundation, which results in having to revamp and restructure on the go, which would cause more and more issues at scale and bugs that are never ending. So for us, we don't consider bugs to be a norm. It is an exception, and it's not something that should ever be considered a norm. Anyway, so after we really define all that, we can proceed to the development part and the deployment, also the maintenance. All of that is under the process, all of that is under Imperium code. And gladly, since 2018, we scaled from less than 20 developers, 20 contractors, to more than like a couple of hundreds contractors between QA, coordinators, consultants, business analysts, etc. Our main clients are between France, USA, Qatar, actually different places around the world. And luckily we're scaling, gladly we're scaling even further. And we reached a time where we realized that, okay, we have managed to do that. However, when we look around, we see that other companies and other service providers and other entrepreneurs are still making the same mistakes than the ones that others made in 2018. And we decided that, okay, we need to really put an end to this vicious cycle and to help everyone learn from both our mistakes and others' mistakes. And this is how we can, together as a community, as an industry, can really grow and reach our true potential to the next level. That's why throughout this channel, throughout the next videos, we will be focusing on different areas, one of which would be technicalities, so technical things that are really addressed to the service providers. Others would be purely theoretical, and other videos would be for the business owners. And finally, there will be a lot of use cases, practical use cases that we have been through, that we have consulted on, etc., to be able to really help the businesses on a more practical level. We would also like to share some of the practices, some of the tricks that we do in the business in order to really make sure that everything is organized and working at scale. And it's the little details, it's really the little details that make all the difference. So I'll be looking forward to seeing you in our future videos. Do subscribe and let us know if you have any questions or topics you would want us to consider in the comment section. And have a great day, good evening, and good night wherever you are in the world. Thank you.